Good morning, magandang umaga po. This is a follow-up to the video that I posted yesterday regarding the year-end, or I should say beginning of the year, obligation for foreigners to register with the Bureau of Immigration. They call it an annual report. I got more details and of course some additional questions on it. Stay with me. We'll talk about it. The requirement that foreigners should register with the Bureau of Immigration for the first 60 days of the year, the calendar year, following the year end, which means from January 1st to February 29th or March 1. I have some questions and I also got some clarifications on it. And I got that through the research, through the internet, but sometimes it raises more questions than answers. So the basic fundamental requirement is this, and let's read it, okay? I got this from the Santa Fe relocation website, which is pretty accurate because they're just basically saying verbatim what they saw in the website of the Bureau of Immigration. So on December 10, 2010, that's only a few days ago, the Bureau of Immigration has released an advisory regarding the annual report for 2021. All foreign nationals, immigrant and non-immigrant categories holding a valid Alien Certificate of Registration Identity Card, that's called ACRI card, or paper-based ACR, shall within first 60 days of every calendar year report in person to the Bureau of Immigration, BI, office at Intramuros, Manila, or any BI satellite offices to comply with the annual report of 2021. Now let's talk about this. When they say foreign nationals, even though you are a Filipino blood, born in the Philippines and all that, once you become naturalized in the United States or any other foreign country, you're now considered a foreigner. Okay? Foreigner. Now, those who applied for dual citizenship, once again, they got their Philippine citizenship back, so you're no different from people who never left the country. Okay? So you're a citizen. But if you did not do that, instead, you just go there on a tourist visa, balikbayan, or some people go for SRRV visa, that is senior resident or retirement visa, something like that. Resident Retirement Visa, SRRV. And for whatever reason, they don't trust becoming like a Filipino citizen again and losing some of the benefits from the United States or another foreign country and such. They opted to just get the SRRV visa. And I can't remember, I think yesterday on my previous video, I said, I think you are going to be covered by this. I will have to take that back because there is something that I learned. So let's continue on who is a foreign national, and also the key thing here is it says, and holding a valid Alien Certificate of Registration Identity Card. That's key, okay? So the next question I have to ask myself is, well, who is required to have an Alien Certificate of Registration? Okay. It says here, aliens who are granted permanent residency status, quota or non-quota immigrants, are also required to secure an Immigrant Certificate of Registration, ICR. All other aliens who have been allowed temporary residence in the Philippines for more than 6 months must likewise obtain a Certificate of Temporary Residence. And those temporary, meaning I assume tourists could also be with the extension and all, will be staying longer than 6 months, are also required to obtain a Certificate of Temporary Residence. The following foreign nationals are required to comply with the annual report, that's what we're talking about. All foreign nationals, including their accompanying dependents, who are holders of valid Alien Certificate of Registration. They always have that qualifier, you have to have an ACR card, are required to comply with the annual report except for tourist visa holders. Now, what he's telling me is if I'm a tourist, usually I'll only stay 30, 60 days. 30 under normal circumstance, forget about the pandemic, no visa required. And if it's more than 30 days, I'll have to get a visa. So that's maybe 60 days. And then maybe I could get another extension, then I go beyond. But still, this exception says tourist visa holders are not required. Okay? So now the next question is, how about balikbayans, which is usually up to 1 year, and SRRV visa? So, okay, this website talks about how to get an ACRI card in the Philippines, Alien Certificate of Registration, and this is as of October 29th of 2020, okay? It says here, for foreigners who stay in the Philippines for more than 60 days, an ACRI card is required. An ACRI card is an Alien Certificate of Registration card. It's a microchip ID that has different categories. Usually, an ACRI card is submitted together with a visa application. You can get it at the Bureau of Immigration Office. Read these steps to secure. Well, let me see. I don't want the steps. I want the classification. Foreigners required in getting an ACRI card in the Philippines. All foreign nations with immigrant and non-immigrant visas, including temporary visitors visa holder, tourist, who stayed in the Philippines for more than 59 days. Okay. So if you're less than 59 days, you're not required to have this. If you're staying over 60 days or 59 days, then you will be required to have an ACR card. Now, they have several categories. Permanent residents, it's colored light yellow, they say, okay? It says here, 13 quota, 13A visa, this is Philippine citizen's wife. 13B, child born abroad, whose mother is permanent resident. Child born after parents have immigrant visas, Filipino women, blah, blah, blah. Returning residents, 13E, natural born Filipinos naturalized in another country, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to attach the link down below so you can take a look at it and you can see if you fall under any of these categories, and that means you will be required. Now, it doesn't mean that if you don't have a card, that you're not required. You may have been required and you did not get a card, but you're still subject to reporting because you're required to have a card. So the first test is, do you have a card? If you do have a card, then you have to go. I have a question on that too. You have to go and register. If you don't have a card, are you required to have a card? And this is what will guide you through if you're required. Voluntary registrant is colored red. All economic zone, balikbayan, and look how it's highlighted, balikbayan. Tourists less than 59 days, exempt investors, retirement. So, I don't know. Well, it says here voluntary, which means you don't really need one. But what if you got one? And I don't really understand or don't know how an individual or why an individual would apply for an ACR card when he's not required to have one. One thing I can think of is I think people who want to open a bank account will be asked if they have an ACR card, and maybe they need to get an ACR card just to be able to open a bank account. Now, does it mean you're now required to register? That's a question, okay? It says here, balikbayan, voluntary registrant. That means you're not required, okay? And including this here, tourists less than 59 days. You're not required. As I mentioned earlier, you're not required, but you can voluntarily get one if you need to or if you want to. And here is another one, SRRV, retirement visa. So they're not required to have an ACR card, which means they're not really required to file an annual report. That's how I read it. So, I guess the first question is, do you have an ACR card? So the immediate answer and most likely answer is that, then I'm required to go ahead and file. If I don't have an ACR card, the next question will be, am I required to have one? And I should have one, but I did not. You're still subject to it, okay? So the way I see it now is balikbayan, SRRV visa, and tourists less than 59 days are not required to report the annual report, okay? But if you are unsure, because this is my best interpretation of how this thing works, I would just call the Bureau of Immigration and just inquire just to be certain, because it's not really clear, it's vague. Some of it are very clear. And also the very first mandate by the Bureau of Immigration is that you are holding an ACR card. So to me, the way I see this is they're just updating the file. If you apply for an ACR card, that means your name is in the file, in the statistics, the Bureau of Statistics or whatever. And every year you're supposed to report to update it. Maybe you already left the country, you already abandoned residence or temporary stay in the Philippines. And that is just to have an updated information, I think. Okay, that's the only purpose I can think of on what this is all about. So I hope this clarifies this. I'm sorry the information I gave you yesterday. I think I did say SRRV visa holders because they're foreigners and they're permanent resident. But I can see here that they are not required to have an ACR card, which is music to my ears. So I'm just learning, and I'm just sharing this with you as I'm learning the requirements in the Philippines. Okay, so if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. If I don't know the answer, I will let you know. But if I do know the answer, I will give that information to you. And by the way, the exceptions to the personal appearance, there will be some exceptions, like if you are under 14 years old, you could be represented by your parents, or if you're disabled, you can give it a power of attorney. That's all in my previous video. Okay, so I did not bother discussing it here. Okay, so please share this with other viewers, your friends, relatives, neighbors who might be interested in this before they get deported. This is very important, especially for real foreigners. I'm not talking about Filipino, but there are a lot of Filipinos there who are also wondering about this. So please do subscribe unless you have already done so, and make it a great day. God bless.